Welcome back to the Aggression in Dogs Conference. All of the talks are pre-recorded and played right here on the main stage. If you're having technical issues with the live presentation, a YouTube link will be provided in the chat box where you can watch the presentation in another browser window. Professional closed captioning is available by clicking on the CC button at the bottom of your video window. If you experience any other tech issues during the live presentation, please visit the info desk in the lobby or drop a question in the chat box. Information about continuing education credits, as well as a link to download PDFs of the presentation slides, can also be found at the info desk. Stick around for Q&A time right after here on the main stage, and just so you're aware, there'll be a slight delay of a minute or so in between the presentation and the Q&A session. If you have questions for Leslie, please enter them in the Q&A box so she can see them outside of the chat box. We also have lots of great prizes to give away. If you're attending the conference live, you can earn points for the contest by engaging in activities such as visiting our amazing exhibit hall. And don't forget to join us for our virtual cocktail party tonight at 7 p.m. Eastern Time. Grab your favorite beverage and join us for the chat. And now for our next fantastic speaker. Leslie McDevitt is the author of the internationally popular Control Unleashed series of books and DVDs. Her books have been translated into many languages, and she's helped people all over the world learn how to use her science-based methods to help companion performance working dogs learn how to function without stress in very challenging environments. For close to 20 years, Leslie's methods have empowered diverse populations of dogs, companion dogs, shelter dogs, competitive performance dogs, canine search and rescue, and detection dogs, therapy dogs, and more. If you have a dog that worries about stuff that happens, other dogs, people, noises, the unexpected, or you're a giant behavior nerd that is interested in counter conditioning with an operant-based using start button behaviors, Leslie has the tools for you. She's taught all over the world and is especially proud of her roles as a Clicker Expo speaker and consultant for the Penn Vet Working Dog Center. She's also very proud of her ever-growing number of CCUIS, Certified Controlled Unleashed Instructors. Leslie lives outside of Philadelphia with children, dogs, cats, a bunny, and a pony, and her husband. Leslie also has helped to shape how I approach aggression cases, and certainly with her groundbreaking Look at That technique. And I'm really excited to hear her talk about cooperative counter conditioning.
Hello, I'm happy to be here today with you all to talk about cooperative counter conditioning. So my plan today to talk about what that means, why it's a great thing to add to your toolbox, and how to use it. We're going to talk about the magic of start button behaviors. Those are behaviors that empower the dog to say, start a procedure, continue the procedure, or stop it. And we're going to talk about two procedures that I wrote about for my third Control and Leash book, Reactive to Relaxed. They're called Voluntary Sharing and Requested Approach Training. So I was inspired to make cooperative counter conditioning, my big project by friends that work in voluntary husbandry, such as Laura Monaco Torelli and Deb Jones, who has a new book out on cooperative care. So voluntary husbandry, empowers any species from dolphins to your kid to be able to say, yes, I am ready for you to do this blood draw. Yes, I'm ready for you to give me this shot. I'm ready for you to clip my nails. So I looked at all that, thought about how empowering and amazing it is, and wanted to create protocols for my students whose dogs are on a reactive to aggressive spectrum of agonistic behavior to say, yes, let's put the dogs in the director's seat here. They could control their own counter conditioning, just like they could control their own husbandry experience. That would be amazing. So that's what I'm really excited about these days. So this kind of training establishes trust in the system. The dog will learn he can bail. He's in control of it. He can start and stop a procedure. Gives lots of information to the dog. So I like to use stations, and you'll see a lot about that. So the dog knows exactly where he's going, exactly where a helper is going, and what's going to happen when they get there. So tons of information. The dogs that I work with that are on a reactive to aggressive behavior spectrum, tend to be coming from a place of anxiety because that's my thing. And the more information they can have, the more predictability they can have about what's going to happen next in their procedure, and the more that control they can have over it, the better they feel, the less anxious, the less aggressive behavior you see. So this type of training, it makes for easier communication. The dog can clearly tell you he's ready versus you deciding for him when he's ready. So if you happen to miss some subtle body language, the agreed upon start button behavior is going to be easy and not missable for you. It's also nice. It's a humane way of training. It's the golden rule. I would rather be in control than feeling powerless. And how you're feeling definitely is going to affect how you're learning. Okay, so start button behaviors. These are behaviors the dog can use to direct the procedure, as we said. Now, they could be taught. It can be a conditioned behavior that you practiced a lot before the procedure, or it can arise out of a shaping process, even during the procedure. So that's pretty cool, and you have some choices there. So examples of a taught start button, usually it's a target behavior, a chin rest, a nose touch, a paw touch, something that the dog can target with a body part. Now, examples of organically grown start buttons. I have a border collie that does a lot of sort of vulture head lowering, so that is an example of a real easy organic thing to sort of happen when you're working that you can then use to say, oh, when you do this, you must want me to continue this training. So head lowering for some dogs is a big one. A body part offered. So in other words, if your dog offers you the paw when you take the nail clippers out, they're giving you a start button to say, okay, I'm ready for you to clip my nails. So that's a really good example of everyday stuff you might see if you're into husbandry. And the dog can also stop a procedure. They can move the paw away and say, I need a break, you can stop doing this now. So here's two different kinds of start buttons you could use. And one, I'm calling it one and done because it happens fast, versus a duration one where the dog is going to be doing it for some time. So one and done could be a quick behavior, like the head lowering behavior I mentioned. The dog understands that that behavior causes a specific event or chain of events to happen. So if I lower my head, it means you're going to feed this other dog in the case of voluntary sharing, or you're going to interact with this other dog, give it a resource, and then you're going to come back to me and give me a resource. So a duration behavior, the difference would be the dog is using that behavior for as long as they're willing to have a procedure. So I'm going to keep my chin rest down on this pillow, as my dog Ever is demonstrating, for the whole time that you something. Walk a clown up to me that goes booga booga. The dog can end the behavior anytime to say stop. So that would be moving her head off that pillow. If the dog doesn't ever stop it, then when it's over, you can stop it by clicking it or marking it in some way and giving the dog a treat out of position, not on the pillow. So you've moved the dog out of the start button behavior, then they could choose to go back to the pillow if they wanted. So here is a video example of a one and done behavior using the 1, 2, 3 game. So that is a pattern game that I use where the dog looks at me and that makes me move 3 steps. So the dog knows I'm just going to move these 3 steps forward and stop. So they could tell you, take these 3 steps closer to a thing or not. In this video, my daughter is, being my demo thing and she's sitting on this chair and we're working on parallel walking, then you could work on more curved approaches, turning into a direct approach towards an actual worrisome thing if you were doing this for counter conditioning. So the start button here is she's going to look up at me. The consequence of that start button, I'm going to take 3 steps. Then I'm going to put a treat on the ground so that after she eats it, she has a chance to look up at me again, and that makes me take the next 3 steps. So that's an example of a one and done start button. You look up, it makes the person move. But she doesn't have to look up continuously. It's not a duration behavior. I just take 3 steps every time she lifts her head up. So I put a treat down, stand still, she looks up, I take 3 steps. Put it down, she looks up, I'll take 3 more steps. Put it down, she looks up, I'll take 3 more steps. So she can direct my movement there. She can say move forward or not. If she didn't look up, if she sniffed the ground or looked around instead, I would not take those 3 steps. I might walk her away from the thing, or I might stand where I am. So here's an example of a duration behavior, a chin rest to a pillow. This is a behavior that lasts a long time. The dog can end it by moving out of position. The trainer can end it with a click or a marker word, or where they place their treat. So you can't hear, but when I click, my Turv lifts his head up. My Border Collie does not lift her head up till she gets the treat. So they both have a different terminal stimulus there. My Turv ends the behavior with a sound. My Border Collie says, I'm going to wait till the actual treat comes. So when you're doing this, make sure you and your individual dog have agreed upon what is going to end the behavior. And of course, a cat makes an appearance because it's my house, and that's what happens in my house. Cats and children make appearances. This is about a contract. So if you're wondering, are they just saying yes for real for a start button behavior, or are they just performing a conditioned behavior to get treats? The answer is it's about the contract. So in theory, it's important to make a distinction. Are they just doing a trick because they want food versus they're really saying yes and they feel empowered? In theory, you want to think about that because you want to push yourself to be better, to be a better observer, to be a better teacher. In practice, it's not as important as the theoretical. If your dog is comfortable, if your procedure is successful, you don't see any fallout, the dog is eager to continue, then yay, it looks good to me. Ways to address this: don't use treats that are so high value that the dog would turn inside out to get them. Give the dog a treat for ending their start button as well as starting it. So the dog moves out of position, they get a treat for that too. Occasionally reward them out of position. So if they're doing a duration behavior, give them a treat away from that target so that they can continue by putting their head back on the target. So it's like you're asking a question. You want to take a break now? They put their head back on the target. They're like, nah, we could keep going. So keep asking them that question. Are you sure? Did you want to take a break now? Nope. Above all, this is about honoring a contract. The dog knows a specific start button behavior on their part will make specific things happen. It's always predictable. It's very clear to everybody involved, so the dog can trust the system and feel good about what's going to happen. So teaching a chin rest, because that's an easy start button. We're going to use a food lure to encourage the position. So if you've got your hand, you've got a treat like this. Can you see me? So the dog puts his chin over your one hand in order to get the treat from your other hand. Don't stick your hand in the dog's face. Give him some distance. Let him come to you. Let him move his head towards you. Don't stick your hand under his chin. And then to teach duration, you just gradually add more time in while he's still touching your hand before you click or before you say your word, and then feed him out of position. You can teach a chin rest to your hand, your leg, other body parts, and also teach one to a target object. So you don't have to be right next to the dog in order for them to use this for a procedure. So here's what some chin rest training would look like, showing you how to start with a food lure. You can click that chin touch when you feel it on your hand, add duration, and then you can add taking a step. So hold your hand out, take a step, so the dog comes into you to seek your hand out. Also, you could use this behavior as a start button for the dog to say, take me towards a thing. So that's another reason that I like to play a game where I move around and the dog works to keep his chin on my hand, because that way the dog could use that behavior later in a procedure. So this is showing the lure to put your hand out and have treat in your other hand. See, he's asking for me to do it again by touching my hand. Now I'm holding the lure farther and farther away. Start fading it so that when he sees a hand, he just puts his chin down without needing a food lure there. Now I'm starting to move, so he's coming into me to keep putting his chin down. And now I'm walking some steps while his chin is touching my hand. He grew up doing this and he's so comfortable with it. It's a great thing to teach a puppy. So now that we've covered that, we can start talking about voluntary sharing. I created this protocol for resource guarding. For dogs, I work with a lot of sport dogs, agility dogs that get kind of nuts when another dog is taking a turn. So this way the dog can control, okay, that dog can now take their turn. That dog can jump. That dog can do a thing. For resource guarding, okay, that dog can have the resource. So they're directing it. And when they're directing it, they're not in a reactive part of their brain. They're in a very thoughtful, okay, now it's your turn. Now you go. Okay, now it's my turn. And also for some general FOMO, for some fear of missing out type stuff. If you've got multiple dogs and you need to work with just one or give just that one a resource, this is a really good protocol to normalize that for everybody. But first, the most important slide of this entire presentation, management. So, due to pandemic, my videos are mostly of my own dogs at home. And while they have had some resource guarding issues with each other, they're not in a place where they need any management to be safe. The dogs you are working with, whether they're your own dogs or your client dogs, probably do need some management. So if you don't see a high level of management in my videos, that doesn't mean to generalize that and then go out and do any of these things without a high level of management, because it's totally dependent on each individual situation, how much you need, how you're going to set your antecedents up, what the learning conditions need to be, what your environment needs to look like, and what you need to use to keep everyone safe. So the most important thing in any training procedure is safety and comfort. So whether that's equipment, if you need leashes, you're not going to see leashes in my videos. You may need leashes, you may need muzzles. Distance is a big one. I work sub-threshold, so that means I work below a point where a dog is going to have a reactive or aggressive response. So the dog needs to look comfortable and be calm. And the distance for my dogs might be, a few inches from each other, but the dog you're working with might need a whole football field away from the thing to start. So figure out for that dog barriers, whether it's a see-through barrier, a barrier where they can't see but know that you're there. I use a lot of ring gates. They're sort of um, representational barriers uh, where the dog knows, okay, if I've put this ring gate here, I'm not going around it, you're not going around it. So dogs that I work with learn to recognize ring gates, make things safe. Protected contact. So I have a resource guarding pony, and if I was working with her on this, I would be on the other side of her fence to start. I wouldn't start with her near another horse if I had hay or whatever in my pocket. Remote feeders, so you might not be right next to the animal, but you can make food happen for them, and anything that you can think of. I'm sure you guys have lots of other creative management solutions that I'm not coming up with right now. So we're going to talk about some voluntary sharing. To start, I'm going to introduce one of my patterns. It's called up and down. The point of patterns is to create a predictable, simple, rhythmic feeling type pattern, and then you can add things into it. The goal here is to make the idea of sharing part of a pattern to normalize it. So how to play this: you put a treat in your duck's bowl. You wait for them to look up at you. That's the cookable behavior, that they looked at you, and then you place the next treat down. If you're looking at this and going, my God, my dog or duck resource guards bowls, don't use them. Don't create a potential triggering situation. You can put it just on the ground. You could put it on a paper plate. You can figure out any number of things instead of a bowl. So it doesn't have to be literal. I have worked with dogs that resource guard bowls from people doing this protocol because they end up saying, please approach my bowl because I know you're putting the treat down, and then I'm going to look up and then you're going to put another one down. But you would need your management in place and your conditions for that individual dog. So right now we're just looking at this duck who does not need any management. Duck could do that all day. That's Clover. And these procedures do work for any species. Okay, so that's step 1 for voluntary sharing. Step 2 would be introducing a second bowl. So when the dog looks up, instead of putting the treat right in their bowl, you're going to put it in another bowl and then their bowl. Then you're going to add in something else. It could be a stuffed animal. It doesn't have to be something alive. Use the distance that you need. And then you're going to say, okay, well, this bowl that I put the treat in first is getting closer and closer to that other thing, that stuffed animal, that person, that dog on the other side of the room, this cat box. And you're going to gradually put it closer until the dog's start button behavior, whether it's looking up from up and down game or whatever, is making you feed the other animal first, and then the working dog. Then you could integrate start button behavior into it. Whether it's a learned target, so the dog starts to touch something to tell you to put the treat in the bowl. The dog just keeps looking at you and making eye contact. It arose out of the up and down game. Whatever. So what you're going to see in this video is I was expecting an up and down game and I didn't get one. My dog wondered if she should try a chin rest on a bowl. And so that made her start dipping her head down, and I rewarded that. And it turned into a chin rest. So when I faded the bowl, it ended up being a chin rest on the floor, a very strong, very easy to see start button behavior that said, okay, feed the cat. So she moves her head down, it makes me put a treat in her bowl. and I add a second bowl just into the picture. And after a few reps of that, I'm going to start putting a treat in the second bowl and then her bowl. While my cat patiently watches. Puts her head down, put a treat in purple bowl, put it in blue bowl. Now I'm holding the purple bowl closer to my cat. Giving it to my cat. So when she does her behavior, I feed cat, then I feed her. You're seeing a bigger, more clear head lowering behavior from her. Looks at my cat and then goes, oh, I should lower my head. She'll feed the cat and then me, rather than attacking my cat, taking food from my cat. Now we've got a nice clear chin rest that she's evolved. And we have done tons of counter conditioning work so that she doesn't terrorize this cat. So it's easy to fade the bowl now. I'll just feed her as I'm moving it out of the way. And then she can offer the behavior just on the ground. So that's a nice clear start button. I'm going to put my chin on the floor, feed the cat. Now I'm moving her out of the way to end it. So here's what it would look like with the duration behavior. So in this video, Ever is going to target this cup to tell me that I can feed my other border collie. If she ended the behavior before the click in a duration behavior, feed the dog anyway, and then decide if you need to reevaluate what you're doing, add distance, change your management plan. So when she puts her chin down on the cup, I feed my other border collie easy, and then I feed her. When I feed her, she has to move her head out of position, gives her a chance to put it back. So I started out feeding easy by hand, and now I'm starting to throw it. I'm doing that to make it harder for Ever, because throwing a treat for another dog, it was quite challenging for her not race and get the treat. So here is one of my certified control on leash instructors, Angie, with her son. She's going to show you a pattern where her dog does a chin rest to her leg. That makes her tell her son to eat. Her son eats. Angie ends the dog's behavior with a yes and then feeds her out of position. Now again, there's not management in this. I'm showing you it because it's very clear what the cues are, what the expectations are. And I want you to just get a sense of the timing and the mechanics of this procedure. Angie used to be a zookeeper that specialized in carnivores, so she does know a lot about management. You can see she has all of her limbs intact.
Eat. Yes. Eat. Yes. Eat. Yes. More away, please. Eat. Yes.
Very well trained little boy. So this is another example, another one of my control and leash instructors, Jane Eskery. She's going to show you how easy this procedure can be.
That was easy.
So that's an example of a target behavior that doesn't have a duration. The dog knows the target behavior is done because he pushes the button down. He feels how that feels, and he hears the sound. That means he's pushed it down. So it ended itself, which is pretty cool. You can have some creative applications of this. You can use multiple start buttons that drive different consequences. As long as you're predictable, you can have as many as you want. So you're going to see 2 examples of start buttons in here. There's a one and done. Ever's going to use her signature head lowering, and that tells me give Sage a treat. She's doing it in that context, but when I move closer to the platform, she's going to sit on the platform to tell me that I can play with toys with Sage. This was super helpful for her to get used to the new puppy that might be tugging near her. So first you're going to see her head lower. First I'm feeding her and then the puppy, and then I'll switch. She lowers her head, I feed the puppy, and then her. The head lower usually gets bigger as this goes on.
Are you ready? Should I tug with her?
Now that I've brought a tug toy, that's changed the conditions. She
Sure?
sees it, goes to her platform. And I feed her, move her out of position, try to get the toy back from my puppy. She sits. That makes me play with the puppy again.
Baby's gonna sit. Come here, give her some space. Come here, give her some space. Give her some space. Do you want me to tug with him again?
I'm waiting for all 4 feet on the platform.
Okay, get it, get it, get it. Yay, yay, yay. Baby's gonna sit. This little baby. This little baby here. Okay, get it, get it. Yay.
So we're going to talk about requested approach training now, which I named RAT just to be silly. So the start button for this, it's your choice, just like what you're going to use for voluntary sharing. For RAT, I prefer teaching a sustained target behavior, a duration behavior. And the reasons why: 1, it's easier for your clients or yourself to see a big obvious behavior. The dog put his chin on something, or the dog took his chin off something. That's real clear for everybody. That's easier than reading more subtle body language. Because of this, it's easier for you or your client to work with the dog under the threshold point, because the dog can say, okay, I've reached this point, I've had it, stop what you're doing. So most people I work with these days are professional trainers working with their own clients. Most of them have pet clients that don't have tons of experience and come to them, with dogs that are anxious, that are reactive, that have aggressive or agonistic behaviors, don't know what to do. So it's empowering for the human clients to be able to see one clear behavior and go, oh, that means I need to respond by doing X thing. So the consequence for a start button for RAT is the helper moves to a station towards a dog, or the trainer moves the dog to a station towards a helper. We have stations, so the dog always knows where they're going, or the dog always knows where the helper is going. There is no uncertainty with this. The dog doesn't go, are you going to walk me all the way up to that dude? Or is that dude coming all the way over here? No, because the dog can see a visual station. The movement for this, because it is a motion game, they could be parallel past a helper, they could be curved, evolving into direct approaches, like what would happen in real life. So Anytime there is a direct approach in RAT or in any of the pattern games that I have, it's paired with leaving. These are approach retreat protocols. The dog shouldn't feel like they're stuck near the thing. So once they've got to the station, they then leave. Or once the helper's got to the station, he then turns and walks away. If the dog says no, thank you, only the dog is in control of this. His start button behavior will make things happen, will make the helper go to a station, will make you take him to a station. So if they stop using that start button, nothing happens. The helper will not go to the station. You will not take the dog to a station. You have choices. You could take the dog farther away. You could increase distance. You could have them stay right where they are, but you're never going to decrease distance unless the dog asks you to. And if they're saying no thank you by doing anything that's not the obvious, clear start button behavior, usually they'll look away or they'll sniff the ground or they'll look at you and you go, oh, okay, you're saying you don't want me to keep taking you in that direction. Fine. You need to take a step out of this picture and reevaluate it. Do you need to change your conditions? What was happening when the dog needed you to stop? And listen for the little no's. So if the dog sniffs the grass or looks at you instead of doing his behavior, honor that. Don't wait for the dog to suddenly go, well, I tried not doing a big observable behavior. You didn't respond right away. I'm starting to freak out. And now I'm going to start barking. You know, that would be a big no. Notice the little no's, honor them. Anything that's not clearly, obviously doing a start button behavior, that's the no, okay? Don't say, well, yeah, but you know, he's just sniffing, maybe he needs a minute. No, that was his no. If you don't listen to little no's, your dog is going to have to shout and give you a bigger no. And that's on you, not on him. So here's an example of RAT where a helper approaches the dog. My friend has brought a baby over. Sage had not seen a baby. The baby was crying. The start button here is chin rest to leg, and the consequence of that start button, the helper will go to a station, which in this case is that little cone. Now you can move the station. So it could start farther away. You could gradually move it closer. You could move it until the station is right at the working dog, but you would obviously do that in baby steps, and the dog can see where the station is going and they know that is where the helper is going. So when my helper Dana gets to the cone, I click and then I feed Sage out of position. As he's eating, Dana turns and walks away. That way, when Sage puts his chin back on my leg, Dana can go back to do the next rep. So that's the timing of this. I apologize for the baby crying sounds.
Yes. I hear a baby. You want to hear a baby?
You see him putting the chin down, so baby comes up,
Boy.
feet in my position as baby leaves. You can't hear my click because I just use a tongue click. My dogs are under the table right now saying, I hear a baby crying, what's going on? So I'm going to turn this off and stop torturing them now. Okay, so here is another one I made for you guys yesterday. The start button here, ever made this start button up. It is a shoulder target. It evolved out of healing training. She touches her shoulder to my leg, that makes me move. And she knows that if I feel her shoulder on my leg, I take steps forward. So the consequence for this is I'm taking one step towards my helper, my lovely son, Ari. At each step, I stop and feed, and then I stand there. And if she puts her shoulder back against my leg, I take one more step. These are not great conditions. This is suboptimal because my husband is sitting in the grass, filming her with my phone, and that makes her nervous. However, it makes it easier for you to see whatever is doing because she continually looks and takes a little bit of a step towards my husband to check him out, then thinks about it, comes back towards me, and uses her shoulder to target my leg to say, take another step. You'll see that she says enough when we get to a certain distance, and so then we walk away. Now, when you've walked away, give the dog a treat after you've left. So you get a treat for no or yes. So she sees my husband, puts her shoulder to my leg. I walk one step, feed. Sees husband, shoulder to leg, one step, feed. Sees son, shoulder to leg, one step, feed. Now she takes a step back. She looks at him. She looks at me. She lowers her head. She's not putting her shoulder back on me. So I say, okay, I got the message. Let's leave. So that's a good example of what a no could look like. Here is a rat where the helper's approaching a dog. It's a kid with this electric fly thing that Angie's dog is worried about, scared of. There's multiple stations, and I like that, so the dog can see not just one station, but tons of cones. It's super clear for the helper, too. And what you're going to see is that once the kid gets to the cone closest to the dog's like, I've had enough. I'm not putting my chin back down for this. And there's lots of things you could do next. You don't get to see what they do next because the video ends. But here's things you could do. You could give Piper a treat, have the kid go back to the beginning, have the kids stay where they are but not come closer. You could end the whole session and give the dog a break. You could come back and put a visual barrier like a baby gate or a ring gate in front of the cone that's closest to the dog. So even if the kid goes to that cone, there's a barrier there telling the dog she's not coming all the way up. Angie could have washed the dog away rather than having the kid walk away. So, this is a very flexible protocol, as all my protocols are. And you look at your conditions and you figure out the best way of doing it. So, chin on leg. Makes the kid go and wave one time. Feet out of position. Chin on leg. Kid goes to the next cone, waves one time. Also, when you don't need a leash, that's nice because the animal could get up and walk away if they wanted to. But obviously, if you do need a leash, you'd better use one. So here she's coming closer. Dog's eating out of position. Puts her head down. Daughter comes closer. Dog lifts her head. I've had enough. So Angie says, we'll go back one cone. So that's how they dealt with this in the moment. Okay, for our final one, this is one of my students / friends, Clay. He set this up at home, and so I love this because it's an example of, when you don't have another human helper, how can you manipulate your environment? So his dog was resource guarding to the other dog, so he set up a situation with an X pen. That was his management. Pet tutor, he can feed the dog remotely. That's part of the management. He's got a station, it's that mat there. And so what he's going to do, he's got a target object in the X pen. So when radar, the tower, puts the chin rest on his target object, it's going to make Clay move Hubble to the mat. So radar knows exactly where they're going. As soon as Clay gets to the mat, his next move is he's going to turn around and leave. So he's not going to stay there. He's not going to come closer. It's very clear. When Clay gets to the mat, the pet tutor is going to go off. Radar is going to get his treat, and then he can resume his position. Chin rest. Puts Basenji. Pet tutor beeps. Chin rest. Puts Basenji on mat. Pet tutor beeps. Walks Basenji away. I like when Radar's tail starts to wag. He starts to get more comfortable. You can see it. He says, come back, do it again. There's his wag. So there's lots of ways to customize this stuff, to make it work for you, to make it, just right for the individual, to set your conditions up. These are flexible, and I hope that I've given you some tools for your toolbox. They're not meant to replace what you're already doing. They're meant to complement what you're already doing, and add a little bit of voluntary start button behavior into what you're doing, so your dogs can, get some more control over what's going on. So keep in touch. Right now I'm on Facebook a lot. You can visit me at my group, Friends of Control and Leash. Ask me any questions you want about this video or books or whatever, and I will talk to you there. All right, thank you.